Becoming You show with me, your host, Leah Rowling. Do you believe you are capable of choosing your future? Sometimes it takes just one person to believe in you, or you to believe in yourself. If you find yourself continuing to say, someday I will take better care of myself, only to continue living the same day over and over and over again, then you, my friend, are in the right place. I am your biggest cheerleader, inspiring you to become you on purpose and with intention. Are you ready to create a life you love? I'm excited to share with you some big ideas that you can use today to inspire, impact, and influence your life and everyone in it. The Becoming You show starts now. Hello, my friends. How are you? What's been happening? Let's see here. My boys had homecoming, and that was awesome. I took a picture and I look at myself and I think I've never felt short in my entire life. So my boys are giants. But life has been good. We've got football, a little bit of baseball flowing over, and I want to hear about you. So you know how I love to hear from you. So DM me, email me, let me know what's going on and how you're looking to finish this year super strong. I am very excited about this topic that we're going to kind of dive into today. I get lots of coaching questions about this. When I'm asked to host workshops or facilitate corporate trainings, this is a topic that gets passed around a lot. It's a topic that I think for most people, they either think they know a lot about or they think it's an ineffective tool for their own self-growth and care and connection. And that is the topic of boundaries. And yes, I have talked about them before on the show for sure. But I'm hoping to go just a little bit deeper than we have before. You know by now, if you've been listening to me for a while, and if you have, thank you. I appreciate you. And if this is your first time, welcome to the show. I love having you all here. But what I've taught about boundaries before is that boundaries are for us to uphold and not anyone else. They're not for anyone else. It is a request, right? Everyone being an adult. This is not a boundary conversation about children. Okay. So we request a behavior change in some way, and the boundary is what we will either do or not do in relationship to what they do or not do. And it's so important that we understand that before we move forward. So many people give up on boundaries or think they don't work because they expect the other person is going to honor the request. And I like to remind my clients that they most likely won't, which is why we have to have a boundary in the first place. Okay, that's first. The other reason why boundaries don't work is because we over-boundary ourselves. It's the same thing that we do at the very beginning of a new year or a Monday. We set all of these expectations on ourselves, right? I'm gonna go to the gym. I'm gonna eat clean. I'm gonna drink more water. I'm gonna take my supplements. I'm gonna make sleep a priority. And when we make these requests of ourselves, right, we are over-promising and under-delivering. And we wonder why it doesn't work. It doesn't work because we overcommit to things that we can barely do on a good day. Same thing with boundaries. When we think boundaries are for other people, we tend to over-request and we under-honor. And we wonder why it is that we don't have better results and why we don't have the progress that we want. And in both cases, we usually make it mean something about ourselves, that we are incapable of either following through on what we say we're going to do. And regardless of whether or not that is with our goals setting or our boundary setting, we end up ultimately destroying our relationship with ourselves. So I want to share with you a conversation that I recently had with a client of mine. And she was talking to me about feeling left out of important conversations that were happening, important decisions that were being made without her feedback or sometimes just against her feedback. And as we processed that and proceeded to have more conversations, what became entirely clear wasn't that these particular situations were deal breakers. Rather, they were heartbreakers. By conceding to and not having conversations and boundaries around certain decisions, certain requests, certain ideas, my client was breaking herself. She was losing herself. Without feeling heard or feeling like she mattered in the relationship, she made it true for herself. Really, by not voicing herself. Friends, you can't expect to be heard if you don't talk. And if you don't communicate. But so many of us would rather not have the tough conversation. We would rather avoid the confrontation. We would rather endure what's wrong than allow other people to be human. We would rather neglect and break ourselves than to allow other people the opportunity to navigate the emotional waters, to discover and manage their minds. And when we don't, we suffer in ours. So many of us think that boundaries disconnect us from others, that boundaries are walls that we set up against others. But that is a lie. That is a myth. Boundaries are the most loving thing that you can do for you and for someone. Boundaries are rooted in truth, which is always the kindest thing. We think it's more kind to concede and endure, but not only is that unkind to ourselves, it's unkind to the world. When we concede and endure, we grow bitter, we grow angry. And instead of having a potential conversation to connect, we avoid and neglect. The other myth, as it relates to boundaries, is that if someone crosses a boundary, they're disrespecting us. Friends, listen, please. This is only a possible truth if the boundaries are for other people to adhere to. They are not. They are for us to enforce. Not what they will do if and when the boundary is compromised, but what we will do. And when we don't, listen, when we don't, we become both the disrespecter and the disrespected. What do I mean by that? When we make a request and the other person doesn't honor it, as they most likely will not, if we don't honor our part in upholding the boundary, then we disrespect our wishes, disrespect her, and therefore we feel disrespected. We must know and expect the person that we are making the ask of will most likely not be obedient to it. How do we know this? Well, because we wouldn't have to set a boundary if they were. Like so many times, though, we get so upset and surprised almost that people are not doing what we ask them to do. And they will say, but Leah, I put a boundary in place for this. And still, they did exactly what I asked them not to do. And then they are all surprised that I'm not surprised. And I say, yes, of course they did. The boundary doesn't change other people's behavior. It changes ours. Okay. And the last myth that I want to take on real quick is that boundaries are these rigid and inflexible laws that require massive amounts of frustration and angst. I used to think this. I used to think about them more as ultimatums or as threats, and then wonder why they felt awful and mean. A boundary, as I mentioned before, is one of the most loving things that you can do for yourself and the other person. It informs how you will show up in the event a request has not been met. And this is far more preferential than us not having one and then getting all upset at the other person for not being a mind reader, and then upset at ourselves for not having the guts to say what we really want to say. And I will remind you, the only reason we don't have the guts to say what we really want to say is that we have not cleaned up the thoughts and feelings about it. We don't say what we want to say because what will be said will be mean. And or it will be passive aggressive, or it won't be kind, and it won't be a place from win-win. It will not be from a place of I love me and I love you and I love us. Rather, it will be from a place of feeling bitter and angry and disrespected. Okay, all of these feelings are your work to do. You can't possibly have a conversation around requests and boundaries unless you've cleaned up all of your expectations around who and how you think they should be. The reason why our conversations are typically met with defensiveness is because you are presenting them with someone to defend. Your boundaries are about you, not them. And when we make it be about them, they will undoubtedly assume the rightful position for the attack. If you're making requests from someone using shaming language like you or always or never, you can be assured that unless the other person does the work that we do, there will be a war. The defense always starts it. So don't give them a reason to do so. We all deserve to have both loving and kind conversations with others. Give yourself the gift of doing that, to do the work, to clean up how you feel about what it is that you're feeling about. And from that place, honor yourself with what it is that you need. And I will say this lovingly. If you can't do that, okay, if you can't make the request because you are still more concerned about how the conversation will go, you're more concerned about how they will react or respond, then give yourself the gift of freeing yourself from the expectation altogether. If you're more concerned about whether or not the person can handle it than you're concerned about your continued handling of it, then at least tell yourself the truth. The truth is that I'm more concerned with having the conversation and the possible fallout of it than I am concerned about being in the know and participating in the conversations and decisions about our future. Give yourself the gift of being honest with yourself. Okay, so now we know the purpose of boundaries, right? Right, they are not for others, they're for us. They serve as guidelines for our behavior and our reactions. They reflect our values, our needs, our priorities, and most importantly, that we feel deserving of having them more than we are scared to not have them. Essentially, right, the feelings around your ask are as important as their feelings about the ask. And if you're not there yet, that's the work. That is the work that you get to do. Boundaries are deeply personal, okay? And what might work for one person might not necessarily work for another person. And so that all being said, I thought I would share some examples around what I have both experienced for myself and witnessed in my clients around both what I might call healthy and unhealthy boundaries in all the various areas of life. So what I do a lot on this show, as you know, if you've listened to me for a while, is I like to coach holistically. And so I like to look at all the different areas of our life and think about where there's clutter in all of the areas, where we might want to set boundaries in all of those areas, and where there are boundaries that are healthy and where there are boundaries that are not. So I thought I would just navigate through the different boundaries that we have in an attempt to kind of have some more self-awareness on, okay, maybe I could think more about that area of my life and think about what type of boundaries might make sense here. Okay, so let's talk about emotional and mental boundaries. Okay, so here are just some healthy ones that I like to, one, make sure that I'm setting for myself, and two, make sure I'm setting with my clients. First, allowing ourselves the right to feel personal emotions without guilt. Okay, taking time for ourselves without feeling the need to explain or justify. Recognizing, right, our limits and communicating them clearly. It might look like, I can't discuss this right now, or I don't like the thoughts that I'm thinking and thereby making me feel the way that I'm feeling right now in this conversation. I'm going to take myself away and out of the conversation. It looks like seeking supportive relationships and avoiding those that are emotionally draining. Okay, those are healthy boundaries. And they require us letting go of the responsibility to manage other people's emotions. Their emotions are for them to manage. And I know some people might think that that sounds not very compassionate or not very empathetic. It is the kindest thing to do. And I'm not suggesting that we walk all over them and we're mean about it. That's the opposite of what I'm suggesting. I'm suggesting you clean up all of your anger so you can present to them in a loving, compassionate way. Okay. So unhealthy boundaries is suppressing our emotions to appease other people. How many of us are doing this? Right? Feeling responsible for other people's emotions. How many of us are doing that? And sacrificing our values and our beliefs to avoid conflict, to avoid confrontation, because we are more concerned about how they feel about it than we're concerned about how we feel about it. How is that mean? Okay, so anyway, relationship boundaries. Let's talk about them. Healthy relationship boundaries. Well, it looks like prioritizing our self-care and personal growth alongside our relationship growth. It looks like keeping certain topics maybe or parts of our life maybe more private until there's trust established. It looks like us clearly communicating our needs and desires. Unhealthy is losing our identity or our sense of self in a relationship. It looks like us showing up different in that relationship than it does in other relationships. I just want you to be onto yourself where you're showing up that way. It looks like tolerating persistent, disrespectful, or harmful behavior. It looks like ignoring the red flags or the gut feelings in favor of keeping peace. Those are what unhealthy boundaries look like in a relationship. I'm going to talk briefly about digital and social media boundaries. Okay. Healthy boundaries as it relates to digital and social media is taking regular breaks from social media and screen time. It looks like not feeling compelled to respond to every single message and notification immediately. It looks like choosing not to engage with negative or harmful content. Unhelpful is overindulging, over distracting ourselves in it. It feels like being obligated and being available 24/7 to the wishes and the whims and the agendas and the experiences of everyone else. Okay, let's talk about work and professional boundaries. Okay, and I'm just teasing just a few of these out so that you can, I'm hoping that the invitation is for you to think more about these boundaries. Think more about these areas of your life and where there's growth opportunities. Because if there's growth opportunities in any of these areas, and I believe that there's most likely either unhealthy boundaries that are set or not healthy boundaries that are set. Okay, so work and professional boundaries. Healthy boundaries would look like setting clear limits on our availability outside of work hours. It looks like us advocating for fair treatment and fair compensation. It's being comfortable saying no or asking for an extension on a project if overloaded. It looks like us communicating our mental capacity and our bandwidth. Unhealthy, and I see these all of the time, is routinely taking on more work than can be managed because we don't know how to say no. And so we just over yes ourselves, and then we wonder why the people that are overseeing us, the people that are giving us more work to do, we get all upset with them for giving us more work, but yet we take it on. Okay, allowing personal and work lives to constantly overlap without a distinction. There's no opportunity to be present in it, to draw a line, a delineation line between this is my work and this is not, and not speaking up about what we need in order to grow, in order to be more valuable. Okay, financial boundaries. Healthy, setting clear, getting really clear about our financial limits and sticking to a budget, not feeling obligated to lend money out or make purchases beyond our own means. Okay, having open conversations about shared finances in our partnerships and in our marriages. The unhealthy boundaries as it relates to our financial area of our life is borrowing money out without a plan for repayment. spending more than we have. It's feeling pressured to keep up appearances. It's hiding financial truths from our significant others, whether they be business partners or our own people. And these are just a few of the areas that I want you to think about today, or make a list or journal around it. I had done a podcast episode a while about suggesting that every problem in our life is a confidence one. And I truly believe that our inability to not only set clear and concise boundaries, but to communicate them are directly affected by our self-worth, our self-esteem, by our confidence. How we think to and about ourselves directly correlates to how effective we are at communicating our needs. And I think as a species, we are terrible at communicating our needs. Do you know why? Because we don't know them. We don't ask ourselves. We dismiss them. We avoid ourselves because we know that if we allowed ourselves to explore who we really are and what we really want, that some sort of confrontation or discomfort is waiting on the other side of that door. And so we'd rather just endure what it is wrong, right? This is commonly called comfort. I think it's disguised as ignorance. We'd rather do that than to actually give ourselves the attention that we deserve, to ask ourselves what it is that we need, what it is that we want, and then having the guts to have the conversation. We would rather stay comfortable, and I'm just going to call it stupid, which by the way, makes us feel miserable, than to interrupt someone else's comfort, thereby minimizing the necessity for anyone to stretch and to grow and expand outside of their own little boxes that we live in. It's kind of tragic when we think of it that way. I know it's a little spicy, even for me, but I believe in you, and I want you to believe in your mattering, in your deservingness, more than the comfort of conceding. So let me touch just briefly on why we fail at boundaries, why so many of us suggest that they don't work for us. I've had this conversation 100 times at least, and this is what I hear. Boundaries don't work for me. And to that I say lovingly, boundaries are not supposed to work for you. You work for them. I often hear, I don't understand them. To this I say, may I challenge you on this? And if they say yes, this is what I offer. I believe that you understand them. I believe that you know what they are. I believe you even know how to set them. What I don't think you believe is that you matter enough to make the request and honor yourself in upholding them. Confusion is riddled in psychological myths. Confusion keeps us comfortable by either not exploring what we want by way of a boundary or by not demonstrating the necessity of our own sense of self. The other thing I hear, I need to be better at boundaries. And I don't usually know what this means, but I hear this one the most. I just need to be better at boundaries. And so I do what I always do when I don't understand what is being stated. I ask for clarification, right? Yes, I ask for clarification. Tell me, what do you need to be better at as it relates to boundaries? And more times than not, it is not honoring the boundaries. More times than not, it is not having the guts and the self-esteem to make the ask, to make the request, and to clean up the disgust and the anger in order to do so in a loving way. To drop the judgment that they should know better, to drop the judgment that you would never do that, that's never how you would act, to drop the judgment that people should be better and different for you. People do not, nor should they be different for you. You need to be different for you. And from that place of how is that I want to show up? How is it that I want to show up? We make our request and we honor it. As it relates to behaviors and boundaries, we need to know what we want, and we need to communicate that clearly from a place of love and curiosity and compassion. And then we need to know exactly what we will do if the request is not honored. We have to know what boundaries are deal breakers and what boundaries are opportunities to explore more of who we are. Is there an opportunity there to get better at communication? Is there an opportunity there to ask more questions, to skill up in certain areas? Is there an opportunity to better trust myself, to get better at managing my emotions instead of blaming other people for them? Is there an opportunity for me to get better at allowing other people to be human, allowing other people to think and feel how it is that they want to think and feel about my request? Yes, there's always an opportunity there. What I find to be so true and so often is when we set our boundaries from a place of neutrality, knowing what it is that you need, want, and desire for your life. And when you lay them at the feet of the people in your life in which you are making the requests, they are way better at receiving them than when you throw it at their face. So many times people will say to me that was the best conversation that we have ever had. And I will say yes, because it is a conversation, not a tug of war. It is sharing a part of you vulnerably and knowing that you have your back no matter what. When they don't have to get you, when they don't have to validate you, when they do not have to honor your request for you to feel seen and heard and respected and loved, you become more respectable. You become more lovable. Do you see this? And what I have found for me personally, when I become more respectable and lovable, I need fewer boundaries. So many times our very behaviors are the behaviors that we are judging in other people. When we suggest that other people are disrespecting us, we generally always disrespect ourselves and them in how it is that we show up. We judge people for judging us. We complain about the complainers. We point fingers at people that don't invite us. But it's us that aren't inviting us. We offer up, I would never say that. I would never be so mean. I would never be so hurtful. And yet we show up being mean and hurtful. Or at the very least, we hurt ourselves by way of this thought. There is so much freedom available to us when we stop blaming other people for us not having boundaries. As I close, I just want to remind you guys just of a few things. Okay. 1, boundaries are not for us. They're not for them. Okay. They're for us. Okay. Boundaries are always the kindest thing, but only when you set them from a place of love and spite. Only when you place them at their feet, not in their face. Okay. When you do the work, when you do this work, you don't need as many boundaries. And when you set them, you will benefit from enhanced mental and emotional well-being, improved relationships and interpersonal dynamics, because you won't constantly be angry at the other people. And most importantly, you will have a deeper connection with yourself. I want to encourage each of you to reflect on your life in this way. Where do you need more boundaries? Where are you judging others for how you feel when deep down you know maybe that it's possible that maybe you haven't communicated your needs in a way that is loving and kind? I appreciate you guys doing this work. I appreciate you being here with me. I honor each and every one of you. And if I can help support you in setting boundaries in any area of your life, find me, reach out to me, DM me, email me. I'm here for you. You've got you. I've got you. We've got each other. And I love you. Have an amazing day, everybody. Take care. Bye-bye.
You have been listening to the Becoming You show with me, your host, Leah Rowling, where I share big ideas to inspire, impact, and influence your life. Tune in every Friday at 11 Central on transformationtalkradio.com for your morning cup of coffee, the hug you never want to end, and that inspirational message that you felt was written just for you. Each show is inspiring you to become you with purpose and intention. For more information or to connect with me, visit www.leahrowling.com.